For instance, I had Gap BTs on my show, and I was asking him about how the price in SLP maybe had kind of gone way up and then had pretty much crashed. And he said, well, it's just going to be a problem in all of these systems where what happens is once a game or a coin gets some traction, then you get all these speculators and they kind of drive up the price, and it's not necessarily organic. So Ethereum, is kind of like this app store for decentralized applications. That's, what Vitalik's conception was from the beginning. And I think it's panned out that way. If you look at the fact that you have things on Ethereum as diverse as, lending and borrowing protocols and decentralized exchanges versus NFTs that are, for Bored Apes or domain names, or, it's really as diverse and flexible as I think he kind of envisioned.
You mentioned about Bitcoin and Ethereum being the somehow relatively more established exchange. They've been to a lot of crashes and they're still here. They're relatively holding their value. Is there anything that scares you that could possibly be a big potential risk that may somehow hit even the more established chains such as Bitcoin and Ethereum?
There would be some kind of, vulnerability in the blockchain itself, which has happened, but they've just patched them before they became publicly known. But if the blockchains themselves became hacked in some fashion, obviously that would be a major, major, major issue. It would pretty much crash the crypto markets. I don't know how long that would last. I don't know if it would be like a permanent type of situation, like if it would just shake confidence to that degree, but it would definitely shake confidence at least for the short term.
It's so interesting to imagine what you mentioned also about hacking being a possibility. But I guess what's so interesting about that is that there's a lot of possibilities. We can't close a certain door, and no matter how decentralized something is, there's still ways on something that could possibly happen that could affect a particular network. I want to ask this in terms of in this part of the world, blockchain gaming has really brought forth adoption. Play to earn NFTs that are highly connected to gaming. I guess the biggest concern that people are seeing towards this is the sustainability of the games being playable, plus the rewards that are attached to it. I guess my question is twofold. How do you think this will play out, that it becomes relatively sustainable, and how does this translate into other portions also of the globe? Because the user base is primarily getting bigger in Southeast Asia, in South America. I guess my question is, how does this scale to majority of the world as well?
So as for the first part of the question, like for instance, I had Gap BTs on my show, and I was asking him about how the price in SLP maybe had kind of gone way up and then had pretty much crashed. And he said, well, it's just going to be a problem in all of these systems where what happens is once a game or a coin gets some traction, then you get all these speculators and they kind of drive up the price, and it's not necessarily organic. And I think I did see that Axie is like kind of tweaking some of the game mechanics to, deal with those issues. So I imagine it's probably going to be some kind of trial and error situation. And as time goes on, there might be a way of kind of like tweaking the crypto economics, so that way it kind of accounts for that type of behavior and like lessens the impact. But I personally haven't read how they're changing it, so I'm not sure like what the mechanism is, or I don't have an idea yet about how that might be addressed. And in terms of scaling, I mean, already we are seeing that there are specific layer 2s that are built pretty much just for gaming, which has pretty specific needs compared to some of the other, like if you compare to, for instance, like the JPEG side of NFTs, where it's just like about profile pics or whatever, you're not going to have as many blockchain transactions at all compared to like in the gaming, right? And so for like Ronin or for Immutable, like, those chains have like pretty specific characteristics for gaming. And it's just going to be different from other types of layer twos. And so I mean, this could be another reason why it's definitely going to be multi-chain, because there's just going to be probably different blockchains for different purposes, and they have different features, and people will select based on that.
You said something interesting. I want to drill in on the JPEG side of NFTs, and I'm seeing the NFT, at least the entire space, transitioning also, that it's not just purely JPEGs anymore. It's a fight between which JPEG has utility, which JPEG has something that gives people access, or which JPEG has something that whoever owns it more value. A lot of people have been saying that a lot of this will probably maybe a fad. A lot of this 5 years from now, 10 years from now won't actually make it as well. How would you think this would be? Because the way I see it also is that a lot of those JPEG like NFTs have become like the new Rolex. It has been the new painting. It has been the new flex. But I don't know if this is just a fad, or if this is the new iteration of how people will. It used to be Supremes. It used to be buying this very expensive rubber shoe. Will something happen that could possibly just change and disrupt all of this as well, considering that it's all new?
I mean, there's so many ways to parse your question. As for whether or not it will always be like profile pics as a way of kind of showing different types of status or flexing, like probably not. It'll probably morph into different things. But do I think that NFTs will now play a crucial role in flexing online? Like, yeah, actually I do. That's pretty much like right from the beginning, I would have discussions on my show where we would be like, okay, so what exactly is an NFT? If you can just right click and save the image, or whatever it is, then what is the purpose of having an NFT? And the reason is for status. That's why people are doing this. So like whether or not it's going to be profile pics or something else, like I think NFTs will play a crucial role in that. I mean, it could even be, there are people who they have very desirable Twitter handles, right? And people would like try to hack them to get their Twitter handle. And who knows, maybe like certain .eth addresses will be desirable in the future. And like, I basically think, I mean, that's another flex on Twitter. It's like, my ENS name .eth. And everybody, has been doing that. So there's going to be many, many, many ways that people use NFTs to flex online.
I think what Twitter did, where you get to connect your MetaMask also, and to legitimately show that you actually own that NFT, something that's very, very interesting. And that iteration will somehow, I think, push it further into the forefront, that it validates more use cases on NFTs as well. I think that's a very, very good way for people to somehow have a reason to actually buy it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why Twitter and Reddit and YouTube didn't say what they're doing, but they hinted that's why all these places are doing it, because they know that people want to show like, oh, I have the real deal NFT. I didn't just right click and save.
That's what I always tell people, that NFTs really is you buying a token, and the token points to whatever JPEG file, PDF that it is. It's a proof of ownership that you own that particular item, and that's why here in where we are in the Philippines, it became relatively easier for a lot of people to understand it, because a lot of people the games have been so big here that it was just an easy transition for them to look at it in a way that I've been spending a lot of money in buying skins for this particular game, and now suddenly I have the ability to actually own it. I have the ability that if I don't like the game anymore, I could just sell it and transfer it, and somehow if there's any revenue that I get from it, it's on top of me just being a fan of that particular game. And I think that was something that was not available before. That was something that a lot of people did not have access to, and every time you would just buy a game, money just goes out of the window.
Yeah, exactly. Now at least they get to keep their their NFT. So
from an investor's standpoint, people take volatility in the crypto markets differently. Some at the height of fear, they panic, they sell. Some people also that they see it as an opportunity. from your point of view, from someone who's looking at it from the lens of a journalist, what goes through your head during times of volatility? What are you thinking? Is it something that excites you? What are the narratives that are playing through your head?
I mean, it's great from a storytelling perspective. I mean, some of the stuff really has been mind-blowing. Like if we look back at the March 2020 day when, the Black Thursday, when there were all those liquidations. I mean, I just learned so much about the technology at that time, like understanding how when you try to put together these centralized systems and the decentralized systems, because the centralized ones, they just move so much more quickly, and the blockchains have more limited transaction capacity. I mean, it like caused major problems, And so it's just like fascinating to watch. Like people were all kind of excited about this technology and thought it was so cool. And then like suddenly in a very, very painful way, they realized what the limits are. I personally think a lot of volatility does come from the fact that the digital asset space is so new. Do I think that these assets will be quite this volatile in 10 or 20 years? No. They'll probably be more established. They'll have more adoption. They'll probably, for that reason, simply, just the swings won't be as big. But for now, when only like a tiny percentage of the people in the world own these assets, and when the technology is so new and you have these issues that haven't been worked out yet, of course, there's going to be a lot of volatility, and we continue to see that until this day. So I would, if people are concerned about that, I would just have to say strap in for the next few years, because it's going to continue.
What have you noticed as the difference from the drop from the peak of 2017 and then to Bitcoin dropping to around 3,000 at some point in 2018 to the drop of March 2020 to the China Bitcoin mining ban that happened May 2021? Was there a difference in terms of maturity of people, the narratives also, and that it's at the start, Bitcoin and the crypto market were primarily retailers, and as it continues on, we're now seeing institutions and then governments trying to get into this. What have you noticed? And as volatility will continue to press on over the next few years, but it's not just retailers anymore, how do you think the teams will be as well?
Well, I mean, back in 2017, 2018, it was just a lot of speculators and scammers. And, it was a mix. I mean, early on in 2017, I would say probably those ICOs tended to be more like serious blockchain people who were actually trying to do something decentralized. But then you definitely, like the latter half of the year was, just a lot of people who were going along for the ride, So there were a lot of people who, they just wanted to cash in. They wanted to make money. They didn't have a super serious idea. There was no reason that it needed to involve blockchains or tokens, but they were like, oh, I can get people to send me money. Let me do it. I'm going to do it, And now, I mean, we've got like Tesla and, KPMG that are buying crypto assets, which, I mean, clearly the type of participant is very, very, very different. Obviously, we still have scammers, it's not like that has gone away or anything. It's just the kind of more, reputable participants are ones that have these global brand names, which, like I said, that just wasn't a thing back in 2017, 2018. And frankly, that's one reason why I find crypto so fascinating. It's like in history, normally it's the institutions that have been able to benefit first. And then like later on, it kind of trickles down to retail people. But crypto really was like led in the other direction. Whether or not that was a good or bad thing is, probably different people would have different opinions on it. Like I'm sure Gary Gensler would have a certain opinion on it that maybe not all the crypto people would agree with. But, and definitely, scammers took advantage of that, it is a negative thing. But just the fact that it happened at all is, to me, a singular moment in history. It's like a very new development. And, it just really goes to show this technology is disrupting things. And like I said, from a storytelling perspective, I love it.
and I don't know if you're familiar with how the Philippines is made up of. A large chunk of not a large chunk, but more than 10 to 15% of our population is overseas, and the impact of remittances alone that's borderless. There's a large population here that's unbanked yet, but there's a large amount of the population that's connected to the internet. We're one of the biggest populations here that's using the internet, and borderless remittances at lightning speed. It's something that's revolutionary even to us, that people who are working outside the Philippines get to send it very very fast to people. And I hope that when people see it from that perspective, above and beyond just the price, just looking at it from the technology and what it disrupts, that's what makes it very fascinating. That's what makes it very interesting as well. And what you said about KPMG, I think it's something significant for one of the largest auditing firms in the world.
Yeah, and they added Ether too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly, I mean, it just goes to show how much the space has grown and developed, and how all these kind of like outside entities are recognizing that. When Mark Cuban was on my show, he was saying that he felt that in the future, people would kind of like need Ethereum more than they would need Bitcoin. And so if they're using it for many more things, then they would like be more likely to just have it on hand